Good morning. My name is Jess, and today we are going over some mythical creature or being. In this series, I tell you about various mythical beings and creatures, sometimes bringing insight, and other times creating more questions. But together, we will learn about these mythical beings and creatures, shedding light on the history, the places, and the stories about these creatures and beings. Now, before I continue, check in the links and descriptions below for ways to support this channel. This is through the support that I get and the generosity from all of my viewers, subscribers, and sponsors that make this channel possible. Now, before I continue, what you hear, see, and even learn from the upcoming video, please understand the information that the upcoming video contains is there for entertainment and not to be used as facts. I hope you all enjoy the fruits of my labor as we go through different folklore, books, and sometimes even video games to help give us more insight on this week's video. Today we are talking about fairies, but first, a question for you wonderful people watching this video. How do you personally spell the word fairy? F-A-I-R-Y or F-A-E-R-I-E? Let me know down in the comments below. Many cultures have fairies somewhere in their children's stories. I, however, will be talking about Irish and Scottish fairies, more commonly called the Sidhe. With all of this being said, I must also explain that a lot of cultures have clumped most mythical creatures into the same grouping. I, however, will be going over the humanoid creatures. There have been several generations of children who were frightened from threats of being taken away by the Fae if they misbehaved. Doing this also made a child's imagination run wild with ideas and stories to tell other kids, cousins, and siblings, helping to further spread rumors and stories passed down through the generations to come. I am sure you have heard of the Tooth Fairy. Many people think of springtime as being the best time for the Fae, while others think the Fae are prevalent for every season, if one stops to look. While others try to attract fairies to their homes with offerings, such as honey, or even a small home in an area that is not as manicured and left in a more natural state. It has to be said that different flowers attract different fairies. Other ways to help attract fairies is said to be from leaving shining and sparkling things out. I have seen teacups and saucers left out to enable a bathing area for fairies. One could even make a little fairy house or space in different locations on one's land. I have seen people use pots to make little safe places for fairies to visit. Before I continue, understand this video is made for entertainment purposes only and based off of books and the internet and from some movies. This video is solely based off of these things and therefore should only be used for entertainment. If you would like to help support this channel, consider looking in the description below, where you will find various ways on how you too can support this channel. When reading books, fairies are often depicted as small creatures, usually dressed in elaborate clothing or in natural clothing made of leaves and fibers, with other books telling of blessings or even curses to a few select mortals. While other books point out stories about the fairy court jester, who has a reputation for being quite the trickster fairy, with pulling pranks and making deals that usually, through the tricks and dirty moves the court jester does make, it tends to make him the winner of these pranks or competitions. The court jester is of the Seelie court, which is considered the light court, with Queen Tatiana and her consort, who is somehow titled king, which in the mortal realm, to my knowledge, the title of king outweighs the title of queen. Anyways, enough of my rant. The king consort is King Oberon. It is said to be these two that rule the Seelie court, with Queen Mab ruling the unseelie court. Before I do continue with this particular group of fairies, they go through the female line. Both courts in these stories have both good traits and bad traits, with a lot of danger in both places, with stories saying these courts are realms laying on top of each other, making these realms identical in some ways, with the Seelie court being light and beautiful, usually portrayed as more vibrant with more colors, covered in breathtaking spots, while the unseelie court is said to be in a state of cold, usually winter, with very little light, making living in the unseelie court very harsh and very difficult. Most of the stories about the unseelie and seelie courts, there is usually some form of a fight over who is ruling what court and who can gain more mortals under their individual sides, with stories about different deals being made between different light and dark fae, with some deals working and others not working out very well for one side, varying in each story. With all of those things being said, over the last 50 years, with how much easier it is to get books printed or to write a screenplay for a new movie or TV show, this has given way for many different artists who are able to let their imagination run wild and free, giving us even more information on fairies, helping to fill the gaps and further enable our imaginations to run wild, giving rise to various kinds of fairies, from air fairies to fire fairies, water fairies, earth fairies, and so many more kinds of fairies, which made clumping a ton of mythical beings into one category a lot easier in the current age. Now, with everything that has been said, this video is a video based on mythical lore, and that also means you can use your own imagination to create your own stories about fairies. Different cultures portray fairies in different ways, with butterflies, birds, other insects, and even fairies who can disguise themselves as plants to further confuse the mortals who may have spotted a fairy. But was it really a fairy or a trick of the light? There are other cultures that portray fairies in different colors, different shaped wings, and different sizes. I have heard it said that different plants attract different kinds of fairies, and these are some of those plants: bluebells, crocuses, foxgloves, hollyhocks, pansies, ferns, snapdragons, lilacs, petunias, lavender, rosemary, clover, and wildflowers in general. These are a few of the plants I have come across that are claimed to attract fairies. However, like I mentioned before, I have heard other ways to attract the fae, but I must pass on some advice before I continue. From what I have been told, do not start making offerings only to suddenly stop. I have been told this can prompt the fairies who once left blessings to start wreaking havoc, such as losing keys or your favorite coffee mug. However, there are some other ways to attract the fae into your life. I have heard that milk attracts fairies, but that sweet milk works better. Making sweet milk is very simple. Bring your milk to a steady simmer, add about 2 tablespoons of honey or 2 tablespoons of sugar to about 1 cup of simmering milk. Let everything melt together, stirring with a whisk every few minutes. I have heard and read about other ways to help attract the fae into one's life. Leaving out honey is said to attract fairies, but this method, depending on where you set the honey out, can attract insects into one's area. So this method is best used outside and not on a windowsill or on the kitchen counter. Another way to help attract fairies into one's life is to make what I know to be called fairy gold and fairy silver. The process for making them is simple. Go to the beach or river and gather rocks that are more rounded and not super rough. When you're done collecting the stones of your choosing, take them home after thanking the earth for those stones. Wash those stones. Personally, I soak them in water while grabbing the other supplies at the local craft store. I have many options for many paints, but personally, I'm on a budget, so I'm looking for the cheapest and best deal for silver and gold paints. Now, there are 2 ways for a person to make fairy gold and or fairy silver. Use the paint as an adhesive or use earth-safe glue. These adhesives are used to stick glitter onto freshly painted and gluey rocks to enable the glitter to stick together and to the rocks. Other ways I have heard is to put wind chimes up, with the materials not being important. Personally, I prefer wind chimes, but again, the materials are not important. Now, I may digress, however. Bells, the small bells, the tinkering kind, is what I have been told can help attract other kinds of fairies too. I have tried a few of these methods, some giving blessings to my life, while other attempts, I kind of think I was already down on my luck. So, who is to really say? I personally do not know. The other ways I have already said. Make safe places and homes for these elusive beings. Now, with everything said, do not forget, from my personal understanding, fairy have a lighter diet, meaning they tend to eat more fresh foods from a garden than the meat that was butchered 2 months ago or even a week ago. This being said, I have personally experienced more lettuces than I thought possible with a few wind chimes outside. But I also remember to water and sometimes feed my garden of lettuces. But who is to say the abundance in my garden was the fairies? Or was it the water and nutrients as I gave to them? Who is to really say and who is to know? As I mentioned previously, making a safe haven for fairies, such as houses that are perfect for fairies to visit. These safe places for fairies to visit can be as simple as buying a pre-made birdhouse or building the house yourself. One can use pretty pebbles to help define a walkway, maybe plant some plants that help attract fairies. Putting a small fence around this house can help make it more welcoming to the fairies to visit. This space can be very simple or as elaborate as you desire. Leaving small mosaic-style mirrors tucked away here and there around this area can also help attract fairies, who are said to be very vain creatures. Now, I personally do not know if doing anything to attract fairies will work. But if you do happen to see or know if fairies are real, please do let me know down in the comments below. Inquiring minds are really, really wanting to know. My name is Jess, and I wanted to thank each and every one of you who has joined me for Mythical Monday. I hope you all have a wonderful day. To help support this channel, look in the description below. Blessed be.